Mankal of Israel Grants, israelgrants.com, and I have the honor of being the facilitator for this session. Prior to 2008, less than $500 million was raised online. Prior to 2013, less than 0.5% of nonprofits in the world used crowdfunding. 2013 was a turning point. Today, almost 10% of all nonprofits in the United States use some form of crowdfunding. Project that within the next 5 years, that number, 6 billion, will go up to $50 billion. Those of us who are not using crowdfunding need to learn what this is about, because this is not just the future, it is the present. And we hope today to be able to give you a glimpse into those people who were visionary enough to already begin several years ago to do this, and have already are benefiting, and hopefully we're going to benefit from the lessons that they have learned. Israel Grants, among other things, runs courses. I've been doing this, running these courses for about 15 years in resource development, and direct mail was always one of the sections of the course. It has now been replaced by fundraising, by crowdfunding fundraising, and that is because crowdfunding is more cost efficient. It speaks the language of the young and of the generous, and when I say generous, I mean Generation X, Generation Y, and the millennials. We have a great opportunity to hear from this team. Arnon Shafir is the visionary who back around 2008 envisioned what this would be. It came out of a research project in the United States at several universities, and it was a startup. It is now past the startup phase. It has offices in Herzliya, in Cambridge, England, and in the United States. And this has been Arnon's path to today. And the featured person for today's session is Tamar Lazarus, whose organization, Or Shalom, is not necessarily one of the biggest in Israel, but it was one of the first that used this in a serious way, this platform of crowdfunding, to raise funds for children at risk. And she has, in the last couple of years, raised over $200,000 in 5 separate campaigns. And that is what we're going to be doing. Arnon, would you say a few words and then turn it over to Tamar?
Well, I don't want to take away from the maven. So Tamar is definitely a leader. Yeah, she deserves it. But seriously speaking, I think that crowdfunding is growing in such a dramatic way that you've all heard about it. You've all seen others go through great successes. And it's really the power of the crowd rather than anything else, but it's also depending on the fundraiser. At the end of the day, the Tamars of this world are the ones who can make a campaign very successful or just another crowdfunding campaign. So I think today we're very fortunate to have her because she will share, I believe, most of the secrets and tips and guidance as to how to take crowdfunding as a potential and make it happen. And I think it's a journey, right? So I'll take 10 more seconds. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So we started Give Together really out of UC Berkeley and NYU, which is a minority shareholder, because everything behind Give Together is based on a research, 10,000 hours of research on what makes people give. And we're probably going to talk a little bit more about it later on. I don't want to take any more time, so Tamar, why don't you take it away?
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Tamar, and I work for Amutat Or Shalom. And just a little introduction to Or Shalom, just to give you a little bit of context. We're an Amutat that rescue and take care of 1,400 children in Israel that have been removed from their homes. Our first campaign raised $50,000 to save one of our boys' homes. Then we raised $18,000 to send 10 children to our Safe Haven summer camp. I should say that we raised that $18,000 in 3 weeks from start to finish. Then we raised $50,000, which was for our emergency foster care homes. Then our next campaign was $25,000 to give startup packs to new children in our care. And we raised that $25,000 also in under 1 month, start to finish. And our most recent campaign, we raised $52,500 to send 50 children to our Pesach Safe Haven camp. And we did that also in 4 weeks. So that's just to give you some idea of what we've achieved to date. Okay, so how did we get there? So I should say that we have done all our online fundraising together with Give Together, but I'm sure that all the tips that I'm sharing now should apply if you use a different platform. So our lessons that we've learned along the way. So these are my top tips, okay, for running campaigns. So the first one is to be urgent. Urgency massively motivates people. Just to give you an idea, our first campaign was to raise $50,000 for the Rayut Home for Boys. Just to give you a tiny bit of context, this home is a home that cares for 24 boys, extremely, extremely vulnerable. They've been rejected from every program in Israel. If they weren't there, they'd be in juvenile detention centers or in psychiatric wards. There's literally nowhere else for them to go. 2 years ago, the welfare threatened to close the home if we didn't raise enough to renovate the home to their satisfaction. So this was a very real, very urgent problem. We had to raise a certain amount of money by a certain amount of time, otherwise the home was going to close. Very, very urgent. So this campaign responded to that, and everybody responded to the campaign. Another one, we had to raise $18,000 by the end of the summer, or 10 of our most at-risk children wouldn't be able to go to the summer camp. If they're not in the summer camp, they've got nowhere else to go. Very, very urgent. People respond to urgency. Okay, tip number 2, be specific. People respond to very tangible outcomes. So for example, 10 children need a place at this summer camp. People can relate to something in these words. This winter, we have to provide startup packs for 50 children that are new in our care. Not only do people respond to it, this kind of campaign, very, very specific, really helps you when you're trying to promote the campaign. We find a lot of people responding and saying, okay, they need 10 children to send. You know what? I'm going to send 1, because it's something that they can relate to. Also, when you're doing something as specific as this, you can really, really promote it and do a countdown as you go along. So a few weeks in, you can say, wow, we've managed to send 2 kids, only 8 more kids to go. And a countdown like that works very effectively. And we would often find towards the end of the campaign, people would say, wow, they only need 2 more kids. You know what? I want to help them achieve that goal. So a very specific campaign and a very urgent campaign were very successful. The next one, choose a very strong and emotive campaign subject. So I work for Or Shalom. We work with children at risk in Israel who have suffered abuse and neglect. It's obviously a very emotive subject matter. However, even within our organization, we wouldn't do an online campaign for anything. So for example, I wouldn't do an online campaign next week to renovate one of the gardens in our family group homes. Even though for us and for Or Shalom, there's a huge therapeutic value for our children in having a very therapeutic garden that they can spend time in. It just doesn't really suit the kind of urgent, specific campaign that I've talked about. So you can be, even within your own organization, you can be selective over which programs and subject matter you think will be an effective online campaign. Ooh, okay. Sorry. Okay. One of our most important tips is choosing great champions. Now, Give Together and lots of other platforms like Give Together, when you're doing an online campaign, you have the ability for individuals to create their own pages within the main campaign. They personalize it, they design it, and they send it to all their friends. And that's what Give Together refers to as champions. So they are your secret weapon. They are your absolute key to success. Why? As soon as you've got a good champion, they expose the campaign to all their network, which means you're being exposed to lots of new donors. And if we're very honest, why do most people give? Yes, they give because it's specific and it's urgent and they believe in the cause, but mostly they give because their friend asked them to give. You know, how many people in this room have sponsored somebody doing a marathon or that've got their own page? You might believe in the cause and you might be, feel very emotional about the cause, but you're mainly giving because you want to help your friend reach their goal. So they are your key. And who are you looking for? The kind of people you're looking for, you do want internet savvy people that are very motivated. So you can have someone that isn't very computer literate and you can hold their hand and you can help them do it through the entire process. However, someone that's going to do it by themselves and be very motivated and take a lot of action and initiative themselves is really key. Also, it helps if they have a reason to raise. So, for example, if they've got a bat mitzvah coming up, or if they've got a wedding anniversary, or any of those kind of reasons, it's also an extra incentive to give. So I want to share with you some of our top 4 champions that we used in Or Shalom. These were twin bat mitzvah girls in America. They made an amazing video. They created a page in honor of their bat mitzvah. They acknowledged how lucky they were to be having an amazing bat mitzvah, and they wanted to give to children in need. And that was very successful because everyone invited to the bat mitzvah basically donated, and all their parents' friends and all their friends. We had an in tribute page, which was run by 3 sisters whose parents had passed away, and they wanted to do something in tribute to them on the upcoming anniversary. So all the parents' friends obviously wanted to help honor their name and also so donated to the cause. Then we had Rafi, the 10-year-old runner who ran 10K for Or Shalom. Like, who isn't going to donate to Rafi the runner? I mean, it was all his friends, all his parents' friends. He was doing an amazing challenge, and he did really, really well. And then lastly, another really great example was Matan, who works for El Al and is a volunteer in one of our homes. So he's been volunteering with Or Shalom for years and years. His friends know all about Or Shalom because he talks about Or Shalom when he comes home at the end of having volunteered. His family know about Or Shalom. So when he set a page up, he didn't really need to sell his page or sell his cause because everybody already knew about it. And also, he was incredibly motivated to raise money because he really understood firsthand the impact of our work. So he's another really great idea for champions, is using volunteers within your own organization who are already very committed and very passionate about your work. Another really top tip is to find yourself a matching grant. A matching grant is essentially when you ask one of your supporters to provide X amount of money to match that amount of money as donations come in. So basically, someone donates $1, it's worth $2. Now, it's really obvious, but it's a massive, massive accelerator. We have people all the time saying to me, okay, I really, really want to donate, and I want to make sure I donate while you've still got the matching. They don't want to miss out on the opportunity to double their money. And it's not only just good for donors, it's also good for the person that's donating the matching grant, because they're also doubling their money. And if they're donating to your cause, then they also want to be able to have double the impact. So it's a really, really attractive proposition. And what I would say is don't be scared to ask your existing donors, even if they already have given you in the year, to provide a matching grant. As I said, it's very attractive for them, and also on your campaign page, you can have a whole box dedicated to them with their logos, and you can do some nice promotions for them. So for example, our British friends of Or Shalom were excited by one of our campaigns, didn't match at the beginning, but saw we only had X amount at the end, so wanted to help us finish the campaign. The Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh, they support us every year anyway. However, they provided an additional matching grant when we asked them for one of our specific campaigns, because they already had support for us, and this for them was a nice, exciting opportunity to be part of something different. What was really great in our last campaign was this foundation, who donated to one of our previous Give Together campaigns. We'd noticed that she donated quite a nice amount, a sizable amount. She donated around $5,000. So we just spoke to her before the campaign was starting, saying, well, we know you really liked the last campaign. We're going to do another one. Would you like to, would you like to be part of our matching program? And she was like, absolutely, and donated $21,000, quadrupling her previous donation. So it was an amazing result, but she really responded to the fact that she could be very instrumental in making the campaign happen. So don't be scared, ask everybody. Okay, this is obviously very obvious, but once your campaign's going, you want to be blasting to the world by any means possible, all the time. That's Arnon and Rafi, the runner. People often say to me, like, don't people go crazy when you send them an email all the time? I think that's something in the nonprofit world where people are always worried that we're doing too much and we're going to annoy people. Hand on heart, every campaign we do, and I do blast it out to the world all the time, I have a handful of complaints. Too many emails, stop bombarding us. Literally, never ever more than a handful, never more than 3 or 4. The amazing thing about online campaigns, and a shout out now also to Give Together's techie stuff, is that during, before, and after campaigns, you can really do quite in-depth analysis of how your campaign has gone. You can look at when there were peaks, when there were troughs, how it all worked. For example, you can see as you're going along how many people have visited, you can see the number of donations, the average donation, you can see the progress towards the target, so when you had a peak in donations. And after all the campaigns, we always sit and basically go through the lessons learned of that campaign for the next. Some things to highlight that we learned along the way. For example, we learned that we get a lot of new donations during online campaigns. Always the majority are from new donations, and we put that down to the champions opening doors for us in lots of new areas. We also noticed that we've got a lot of existing donors who have remained quiet for a lot of years, and suddenly we do an online campaign, and out of nowhere they come and they donate straight via the campaign page, and we get a lot of money through them for that. And what that says to us is that online campaigns speak to certain people. They really do. If you think that your clientele won't respond, you will find people that it instantly speaks to. And we also see what mail blasts were effective. So we sent an email out to everybody, and we can check, well, we got loads of donations after that. So there's a lot to learn, and that's why it's a really great effective tool in terms of your wider. I think this is my last top tip, is using your customer support. And this is where, again, I have to do a big shout out to Give Together, who have excellent customer service. And what I do when I start a campaign is I start to drive them mad. I send questions upon questions, comments, recommendations, things I think could be better. And they always respond, and they give you lots of keys. So if you're thinking, well, I want to do a campaign, but I don't know how I would make my page look great, I don't know when I would send emails out, how would I make it go viral? They are your people. They will answer all your questions night and day. For example, just little things that I picked up with them. They taught me how to use videos on my campaign page to make it very interactive and very exciting. Told me which payment providers I should use to make it the best customer experience. Even told me what time of day I should send out my emails, because God forbid you send it out in the middle of the day when you're meant to send it out in the morning. They even taught me which subjects to put in my emails, i.e. don't send it like that, it will spam, nobody will open it. How to use your page to your advantage, and themes you can capitalize on, like races and birthdays and all these kind of things. So I would say that you should really get your money's worth, nag them, and they will help make your campaign very effective. And lastly, the main thing to say is that really anybody can do it. We also had no experience of this. We started from nothing, and we have managed to achieve significant amounts through all of our campaigns. So follow the tips and anything else you get told by the customer support, and you'll also be able to achieve success. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I think that deserves another round of applause. I mean, because that isn't just, you know, what in theory we should think about, but that is what you have done, and hopefully the rest of the session will continue in that most practical vein. I'm going to ask a few questions of Arnon and Tamar, and then I'm going to open it up to you. So Arnon, talk to us about automation. That is, we all have our own databases. We have Gmail, we have Excel, we have Salesforce, we have Facebook. How easy is it for us to utilize our existing databases, and what kind of information do we get about the new donors that we can upload and integrate into our systems?
Yeah, so that's a great question. All the existing donor databases, and we're talking about loads of them, most commonly known as Raiser's Edge or Constant Contacts or Salesforce in this matter, can integrate easily into Give Together. But the most important thing is obviously not only to be able to get your donors database in and to mail blast them, but later on to feed it back. So you want a complete automation, whether it's the gift size, the donor group that they belong to, so that everything is nicely coupled. And that is from the donor database. All the donor information, including their address, the size, the donation, who did they donate to, or which champion invited them. So the system basically keeps track of every single action taken. So Tamar knows how many donors came through her Facebook post, and what type of conversion works better through emails or through LinkedIn or through Twitter, hint Twitter, but Facebook really uplifted in the last few years. So we try to keep everything as automated as possible, including the thank you notes, including receipts, digital receipts, but certainly the tracking of the information so that you could actually tell which channel works best and invest more in that channel.
Tamar, how do you get the ball rolling? That is, imagine that somebody here would decide that they're going to sign up for it. Can you describe the first month, the first 2 months? What do you have to do? What kind of staff investment is required? What kind, does it turn everything up and down, or does it happen easily? And talk to us in particular. You said that the key was the champions. How do you recruit them? How do you recruit people who are going to say, I'm willing to pass this on to my friends?
Okay, so a couple of questions there. In terms of how you start, the first thing I would say is you go to whatever provider you're using, in this instance Give Together, and you really, really pick their brains. You get all their advice, and that's your starting point. And then you really, I mean, we started really from scratch, but if you think about those kind of tips, you already can probably start to think within your organizations what kind of programs and what kind of particular projects would be suitable. Then you really invest time in creating the campaign, putting it all together, building basically the back office, because then once you start, the whole thing will flow. So there is the most investment before, and once it's started, it's a different kind of investment, but it's a bit more spread out.
I want to just try to define what that means, creating a campaign in very specific ways. It means, after deciding on the subject matter, it means making the case statement. What is the text that you're going to say to describe it? It means taking the pictures and having the headlines or the explanation of what we're looking at. And it means having some form of video, a short video, videos of a minute, videos of 2 minutes. We're not talking about 10-minute long-term videos. We're talking about moving things that get the message. Now, Arnon told me today about an animation program which he's given to one of his clients. It was actually probably SPNI, was that it?
Well, I have to say we use that.
You use the animation as well?
And the Give Together people told me about this program, and then somebody told me a day later, also from Give Together, that actually non-profits can get a 3-year subscription if you apply, and that you say that you apply for a certain certain kind of membership of the program, which we did, and we now got it free for the year. So it's, but also with the campaign, you're not only building the page, you're also building at the beginning. You build all the emails that you're going to send out throughout the campaign. You create the thank you letter. You basically do all the work for during it, before, most of it.
So you have a calendar saying after week 1, we're going to send out this kind of an email, and after week 2, this. And the thank you letter will say this, and encourage them to take the next step, not just to contribute, but also to be a champion.
Yeah, I think that the key to success is really planning, and Americans do that, by definition. But we Israeli, right? We want to swing it, right? We want to do it toch kedei tnuah, and that doesn't work, okay? Because a crowdfunding campaign has 3 parts. 1, the fundraising, right? Crowdfunding, and the funding is fun, right? But you have to have the crowd, so you need to build a crowd, and that is, everything that has to do with donor cultivation and, getting the word out. The last part is actually, motivating and planning. It's a campaign, and like the presidential campaign, Obama wasn't elected just by chance. It was a very well-oiled machine, and you have your own machines that you can actually release out there. But it requires planning. So what will you tell your donors in week 1? What will the email that announces that you've surpassed 50% of your goal will say in advance, not on the spot, not yeh beseder, not yalla ala kefak. It doesn't work, right? So with the years, we added some templates so that when you get to a new campaign, you already got like 8 ready-made templates, which you can then customize and then make it more suitable for your goal. Yes, question.
So for an organization that decides today that we're going with it, till we launch, what's the timeline?
That's a brilliant question. I didn't pay you anything to ask it, right? So I think we've got a few record-breaking organizations that from idea into launch, it took them 48 hours. But that we're talking about the big burn,
The
forest fire at the Carmel, right? So there are 2 guys in New Jersey who set up a campaign and raised $300,000. If there's one recommendation you take from today, from the scientific part, from the, why people give, take a risk. And that's a very calculated risk, because you'll find out we've never had, by the way, so far, knock on wood, I know it's not Jewish to do that, but we've never had a conditional campaign that went bust. So if you are willing to take a risk and say, either we're going to raise the entire amount or your money back, guaranteed, I'm going to actually make a commitment here that you're going to see an amazing success rate. So one thing is self-selection, right? People vote with their feet. People, they say that, show me the money, right? So we have lots of nonprofits that do animal welfare. And the people who love dogs won't give money to the cats, right? And we work with Jewish organizations and animal welfare organizations and education. So people say that we work with the Wilde Chayes. But at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, it's a self-selecting process.
Arnon, let me get
Go ahead.
the audience in. Noam, you just launched the campaign. You have anything you want to just share with us?
I'm Noam Even from החברה להגנת הטבע, from the Society for Protection of Nature in Israel. עברית יותר? אוקיי, עברית. עדיף. אני הייתי בפרזנטציה של תמר לפני 3-4 חודשים, ופשוט החלטתי שאני הולך על זה. ושכנעתי את ההנהלה של החברה להגנת הטבע להיכנס לסיפור הזה, ומה שלקח לנו, האמת היא, הכי הרבה זמן זה למצוא את הקמפיין הנכון בשבילנו, להתחיל איתו כדי לחוש את השטח, והחלטנו שאנחנו עושים שיתוף פעולה, דיברנו הבוקר על שיתופי פעולה עם עמותת לסובה. אנחנו ביקשנו לקחת את הילדים שלהם ממועדונית קדימה ביבנה ל3 ימים של מחנה קיץ בבית ספר שדה חרמון שלנו, זה נוער בסיכון, והחלטנו לצאת עם הקמפיין הזה, הצבנו לנו יעד של 50,000 שקל ל5 שבועות. אנחנו עכשיו 8 ימים אחרי תחילת הקמפיין, ואני בודק כל בערך 5 שניות את הקמפיין, ואנחנו עומדים על 39,000 שקל כרגע. אני חייב להגיד, זה לא מעט עבודה בשביל קמפיין ראשון, אבל ברגע שאתה בונה את כל הטכניקה, את כל ההבנה, את זה, אני מאמין שהקמפיינים הבאים יהיו באמת אפשריים מבחינתנו להוציא בזמן מאוד מאוד קצר, וזהו, אם יש לכם עוד שאלות אחרי זה, אני אשמח גם לענות. טכנית יושב שם, אני...
Tamar, give us one idea. And there's a large investment at the beginning. In your 8th campaign, is it by now a much smaller investment to get a campaign going?
Yeah.
And in other words, there's a graph that will show that the money goes up, but the investment goes down?
Right. I mean, the first campaign, I was on the phone and email with the customer support the whole time. I needed a bit of hand-holding. Now I don't need any of that help really, apart from when we've got a technical or a recommendation that I see as I go along. It takes much less time. The first one obviously is the biggest learning curve. Once you've done it and you've learned from it, it's much less. There's investment during the campaign's running, obviously. I'd say a couple of hours every day, recruiting champions, helping them set their page up, promoting it, sending emails out, putting Facebook messages. And then there's investment at the end of closing everything up. We always send reports after campaigns of whatever the program was, and because they're always urgent, we generally can always send a report pretty soon after because it's a real program that just happened. And then we invest in the maintenance afterwards. So you do invest, but yeah, as the more you do, the easier it gets.
Yes. This is a follow-up question because I was on the same subject. How many hours would you put into a campaign that was this 38,000 average income from a campaign? How many hours would you put in? What's the cost of the software? What's the cost of consulting services if you're using them? You could give me a first shot if you've never done it before. Or you could give me the average shot if you've done, say, 3 or 4 of these things. I'm looking for real numbers here.
Okay, well, I'll leave Arnon to explain how much Give Together package costs. But in terms of me, like, I do Give Together, my online campaigns within my broader job. So this is not what I do. I don't only do online campaigns. And when I'm running a campaign, I'm juggling all the other work that we do in terms of the grant writing and our website. So it's something I do within my role, and I don't work full time. I'll let Arnon explain the cost, the actual, in terms of the dollar cost, but in terms of the hours, like we said, you're doing a few hours a day for 2 weeks to get it up and running, maybe 3 weeks. Every day that you're running it, maybe 2 hours. And then afterwards, when you've finished, you're closing it up. It's a couple of hours, maybe for a couple of weeks afterwards. But if I had the luxury of just doing that, would be great. But that in the Amuta world, that's not so realistic.
I want you not to answer the...
No, I'm not. I just want to add to what Tamar is saying. I think that the most precious resource is people's time. And we try to make the platform as self-service as possible. So after the second, third, and fourth campaign, the investment would be, a couple of hours to launch a new campaign, and then a couple of hours to maintain it. I think that what Tamar said, which is critical, is the closure. To get, a cycle with your donors and to report back to them is really, really critical.
Can I just add one more thing? Is that if you want to take a bit of the pressure in terms of the time of yourself, then I have to go back to the champions again. If you have great champions who are out there promoting it at every second that they can, you have to do much less during campaigns. So invest your time in getting the right people in, and then let them run with it.
We had campaigns with Save the Children and Lincoln Park where the top 20 fundraisers would meet and greet with the band. They raised $360,000 in 60 days for the tsunami relief in Japan. So again, not the top fundraiser, but the top 20 fundraiser would get 5 minutes. Good. Would get a meet and greet with the band. The top 10 fundraisers would get signed autographed instruments from the band. And the top fundraiser would get to see the show from up here in the stage. So to answer your question, yes, there's some campaigns with rewards. It's not that popular in the nonprofit world, and we specifically built a platform for the nonprofit world, which has to do with a lot of donor cultivation, thank you notes, integration with the CRM and all that. So that's how different this is from the Indiegogo. But to answer David's question, so the intelligent part is really in the donor checkout, right? So when the donor makes a decision whether to give to you today or not to give, okay, there's something that happens here. And we have researched that area in tens, thousands of hours. So very unintuitive or counterintuitive parameters such as the minimum gift size. Okay, so you don't take a gift under $8 or 10 or 15, right? That has a huge impact on the decision-making process of a single donor. Now that might sound intuitive to some of you, right? But what if I tell you that you don't take money from a certain threshold, which is the upper bound? So you don't take a gift online, which is over $2,800. So those are the type of things, those are the types of intelligence that we, injected the insights from the research into the actual give together. So it's basically a similar type of algorithms that Google used in their AdWords that we use in online gifts. And to your question, I think anyone who wants to speak about the cost, we believe it's too low, but we give a money-back guarantee to anyone who doesn't meet their goals. So you're welcome to speak with me later on.
Would you raise your hand if you would like to ask a question? Okay, great. There are 8 people who want to ask questions. We have 3 minutes. So it's unlikely that all of you are going to be able, but we will continue until the organizers call us away. I do want to say one thing though. Everyone has been given a card and an evaluation form. And on the evaluation form is a question towards the bottom that says, I am very interested, I am interested, or I am not interested in exploring the possibility of using crowdfunding. If you fill that out, and if you didn't get it, then there are more here that will be passed out. This is Danny Bobman, my partner in Israel Grants, and Mara Schechter, a senior grant writer. We will be in touch with you to set up a webinar that can take place in your office or at your home and in several places at once to give you and your leadership the opportunity to answer all the questions. And the card has a special deal. If you do sign up and you mention this promo code, you get an extra 2 free months. Yes.
מהניסיון שלי, ארגונים אוהבים לקחת חלק ולתרום לארגונים גדולים, חזקים, מצליחים, שיש להם מספר שותפים. השאלה אם מציגים כל פרויקט שהוא פרויקט מאוד מאוד דחוף, שאם לא יתרמו לו עכשיו, אז הפרויקט הזה ייסגר, או הבית הזה ייסגר, אז השאלה אם זה לא מציג את הארגון כארגון חלש, כפרויקט לא מספיק אטרקטיבי, האם זה לא מרתיע את התורמים לתמוך?
במילה אחת לא, ובשתי מילים ממש לא, כי השקיפות זה מפתח. את לא תגידי שזאב זאב וכל הזמן תגייסי לדברים.
אם יש 4 פרויקטים בשנה, וכל פרויקט מאוד 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 דחוף.
זה מאוד תלוי, אבל התשובה המהירה זה ברגע שאת אומרת באמת למה את צריכה כסף, ואת שמה את הדברים שנראים לתורמים שלך חשובים, הם יצביעו ברגליים ויתרמו לדברים שהם מאמינים בהם, ולא יתרמו לדברים האחרים, וזה בסדר דרך אגב, לא להצליח. זה בסדר. כן.
Yes.
He asked already a question. The lady behind you. Sorry.
How do-
Let me take a shot at that, because I've done it about 4 or 5 times from the scratch. Tamar, once she's done it, she's built on champions, and then she has others who have contributed, she can talk to and try to, those who've contributed to 2 campaigns perhaps are a potential champion. You have to start with the people who are in your inner circle. You start with your staff. You start with the graduates. You start with the families of people who you've served. And you have to describe what this means. It's a role. It's not a usual lay leadership role. People know what it is to be the chairman of a committee or the vice chairman of a board, but they don't know what it means to be a champion. So you have to be able to, you have to have somebody in your organization who is familiar enough and can easily explain to people who are both computer savvy, but also to people who have great willingness and are on computers but are afraid of the new things. And my experience is that you need to do in your first 2 campaigns a lot of hand-holding. You need to work people through, because while Tamar is motivated if she gets stuck to call customer service, our champions, if they get stuck, sometimes will just say, oh, they're working at 2 in the morning and they don't have the energy to stop and wait and ask.
I'll be less PC than David and tell you the Israel mentality. People are lazy, people are busy, and they like to be spoon-fed. Okay? And that's what you need to do. And if you're afraid of, helping people, it won't work. Our best fundraisers are the ones who actually took it as a challenge for themselves to recruit 10 new champions, in a week. So you set a goal. It's not, your major fundraiser has a goal. He needs to bring in 100,000 in a month or whatever. That's a challenge. Every champion, by the way, on average, I don't know what's the average on your campaigns, but every champion that you recruit is worth throughout a year around $7,500. So that's a big, win, because not only have you, raised $7,500, which is nice in online, but since the average gift in New York is $75, you actually recruited 100 new donors.
Can
Yes.
Can I say one thing,
Yeah.
David? That you don't find your champions just when the campaign's about to start. You are the whole year round. You've got your eyes out. You're thinking everyone that you come across, whether it's on trips abroad or events or volunteers. You're always thinking, would this person be a good champion? just by the nature of their enthusiasm, their initiative. So you always kind of at the back of your mind are keeping like a mental database of who could be an effective champion.
Yes.
So practically, they have to physically create a page, which is incredibly easy to do, takes minutes. A lot of champions, I'll do it with them on the phone together, or I've done it on behalf of champions before, so they don't need to be very literate on the computer. Once they've created their page, and we do make a big point of pushing them to be as personalized as possible, so if we can get them like those girls that I talked about, if we can get them to do a video, definitely a picture of themselves, but the video is the best, a nice personal message, so they have to input a bit of their own enthusiasm and personality in their page. And then once they've physically created their page, you're pushing them and helping them to send it out, send the link out to everybody and anybody. Now with Give Together, they can do it through the platform, but they can also literally take the link and email it to everyone they know. They can put it on Facebook, and you're watching their page as well. As it develops, you see where, you know, if they've done well, you call them to say, wow, you've done amazing, did you see you just got a great donation? Also, what I have found is that champions do get excited as it goes along, because it's exciting to see people write on your message, on your page for you, and watching your goal go up. They set a goal as well for their page, so they're not just trying to raise $52,000 like your page is. They've set themselves a goal. So you also say, wow, you're halfway to your goal, you're doing amazing, you know, how about you do this? How about you do that? So they can do it all from the comfort of their home. And it's all viral, basically.
The other thing is, when I said start with your inner circle, you want to try to define geographically your inner circle as widely as possible. If you have a donor in Seattle, Washington, who is not part of a large group, but he's an individual donor, so pick up the phone and call him and say, we've got this new thing, and go to this website, or let's get on Skype and I'll walk you through it, and all of a sudden you'll have the Friends of Seattle will have started in a viral virtual way.
I saw a word in the first session. I don't know how many of you have been there, but it was all over the board. Remember what that word was? Passion, right? Passion is the key. Okay? If you inspire your champions, they're going to do amazing things. Okay? And guys like Noam and Tamar and Joe and, you know, the many fundraisers out there, their job is to inspire other people to tell your story to their friends. That's what champions are all about. And if you can get them excited, they start competing with themselves. And if you heard about the addiction of Noam refreshing his page, you know, imagine champions that are competing to, you know, get first on the leaderboard, and they just emailed a campaign and they just put it on. So you gotta להרעיל אותם, poison them. Is that the proper term?
That's not what he meant.
Get them high on your own stuff.
Okay, we are getting the boot from the organizers. We are here.
Guys,
we're out there at the
great round of applause to our moderator.
Thank you. We are out at the Give Together Israel Grants table. Please, as you go out, give your evaluation forms to Mara or to Danny, and feel free to talk to us. Thank you very much, and may this session have led to the raising of about $1 million in the coming year.